California just banned the new gas car by 2035, but now suggests residents not to charge electric cars. What could Californian drivers do? A Soros-backed ballot measure to roll back election law in Arizona cannot be on the November ballot. And a San Francisco Board of Supervisor candidate who actively participated the successful recall of a district attorney was disqualified by the city just 2 weeks before the ballot printing. What's the story behind it? Hi everyone, welcome to the Cathy show. I'm your host, Cathy Zhang. So sorry about the delay. There are some technical issues, but here we are. And even without Wei being here today, you will hear a joke at the end of the show, so stay with us. First of all, the ballot measure backed by billionaire George Soros will not be on November's ballot in Arizona after the state's Supreme Court ruled the measure did not have enough signatures. An Arizona initiative called Proposition 210 prevents the state legislature from overturning presidential election results, override a Republican-passed bill that imposes stricter requirements on an early voting list, and decriminalize turning in another person's ballot. This initiative needed more than 237,000 signatures to qualify for the November 8 ballot. The backers submitted about over 475,000 signatures, almost about 2 times of required signatures. But tens of thousands of them were rejected during a review by Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, who is a Democrat, and some other signatures were deemed invalid by county officials. However, Secretary of State Hobbs certified the initiative on August 23rd based on a random sampling of the signatures. On August 25th, Maricopa County Supreme Court Judge Joseph Mikitish said that the campaign had about 2,281 extra signatures. Then, the Arizona Supreme Court ordered the judge to outline how he reached this number. So, 1 day later, on the 26th, the same judge said that the initiative actually was lacking 1,458 valid signatures and thus was disqualified. So, Arizona's Supreme Court said that it affirmed this judge's ruling and would issue a written opinion detailing its reasoning in due course. This initiative is now removed from the ballot, according to the Secretary of State's office. The organization called the Arizona Free Enterprise Club, which brought the lawsuit that led to the ruling, cheered this decision. And the group said this initiative would have cemented fraud in our system, and it continues saying it included everything the left wanted, which is why they were desperate to get it on the ballot. So desperate, in fact, that they submitted hundreds of thousands of unlawful and invalid signatures to the Secretary of State, hoping that no one would take the time to check their work. And, quote, "We are very glad that we did." So that's an update on the election in Arizona. So what do you think? Leave your comments there and we'll review that together. Second piece, let's move on to California and in San Francisco. A political candidate who was actively involved in the recall election in San Francisco, the DA recall, was stricken from the ballot by the city for his candidacy for the Board of Supervisor. And she has taken legal action to get her name back onto the November 8 ballot to become the first Chinese American immigrant Board of Supervisor in San Francisco. So it's a developing story, and the person who's involved, actually, I had an interview with her. If you remember, that's back in June. Liana Lui. She's an immigrant from southern China at childhood, and she is also a veteran who is now a small business owner in San Francisco. Liana Lui became well known to the community after she founded a community organization to patrol in the Chinatown and other areas during the COVID and during the time that crimes against small businesses and Asian elderlies became rampant. And especially after the successful recall of the San Francisco District Attorney Chesa Boudin, where Liana Lui played a very, a leading role, especially among the Asian community. Afterwards, Liana Lui declared candidacy for Board of Supervisor for District 4, which is the Sunset District, where there are about 50 to 60% Asian American residents. So Liana Lui used to live in District 10, the Bayview District, and she started to rent in District 4 in March. Then on June 3rd, she filed documents with the Department of Election to declare her candidacy for this district's supervisor, and was consequently certified by the Department of Election for her qualification, according to her lawyers. And a local newspaper called Mission Local in early August reported that Lui voted in District 10 in April. It's a special election, and the paper claimed that Lui has been living in 3 houses between District 4 and District 10. Following the report, the city attorney in San Francisco, David Chu, started an investigation and came up with a 13-page report on August 26th. Determining that Lui does not meet the residence requirement to run for the office, which it requires the candidate live in the district for at least 30 days before submitting the paper to the Department of Election. Subsequently, last week, the Department of Election in San Francisco announced that Lui's name will not appear on the November ballot. However, Lui's lawyers said that they have all the documentation to prove that she meets the requirement and reject city's decision.
We believe that Ms. Lui was removed illegally because the city passed the timeline to challenge her qualifications. The timeline is set for June 27th. However, no written challenge was made before June 27th. Therefore, she should be deemed qualified afterward. But they removed her at the end of August, which is days before the ballot's supposed to be printed. And so this violates, Ms. Lui's right to be a candidate in the upcoming election, and we are asking the court to intervene and to correct this mistake.
Yeah, and let's also hear her other attorney, Christine, and that's Z1.
Most importantly, we're here to tell you that the City Attorney's Office and the Department of Elections had no authority whatsoever to remove Ms. Lui from the ballot. I hold in my hand paperwork from the Department of Elections, whereby the Department of Elections, in fact, did certify Ms. Lui as meeting all of the residency requirements to be a candidate in the November election.
So now Liana has filed a lawsuit with the San Francisco Superior Court, asking the judge to order the Department of Election to put her back on the Board of Supervisors ballot. Her lawyers believe her case has a larger impact beyond her own rights.
And in this case, I think we are concerned not only about Ms. Louis, her own personal right to run for public office, but we're also concerned with the thousands of voters in San Francisco who want to choose Ms. Louis as a supervisor, and now their voice is being shut out.
To removing Ms. Louis just days before the ballot is to be printed, after a series of slanted articles were written against Ms. Louis that did not include all of the facts. It's, to me, a stunning assault on the democratic process in this country. And that is why we have filed this case. Political opponents of Ms. Louis have weaponized the Department of Elections, weaponized the city attorney's office to remove the frontrunner in this race in an undemocratic fashion. Whether you support Ms. Louis or are not one of her supporters, you must recognize the tremendous constitutional right implications of Ms. Louis and any member of the public seeking to hold elective office.
At a press conference held on August 30th, where her lawyers spoke, some of Louis' supporters showed up and also spoke out.
We know how important law enforcement and crime suppression is in the city. Leanna is very, very pro-police. She supports the police. She was out in front of the recall for Bodine, very active in the community. We need her voice. We need her work.
And for this race, there are another two candidates. One is Gordon Ma, who is the incumbent Board of Supervisor, whose political stance is pretty liberal. And the other candidate is Joe Agardio, who is a public safety advocate. So initially, the three of them will run for this Board of Supervisor position for District 4. And in San Francisco, they do ranked choice election. Okay, so and there are two, I talked to some of her supporters, especially including some of them are Asian and Chinese Americans. So the supporters had mainly two questions. The first question is curious why no one, including the Department of Election, challenged Leanna Louis' candidacy qualification between June 3rd to June 27th, which is the legal window for any challenges and for her to answer any of those challenges. So until August 10th, the local newspaper, Mission Local, reported, and then the city attorney started to do investigation, and the Department of Election then just, determined that her name won't be on the ballot. And the ballot will started to print 2 weeks later. So it's a rather short time. And so that's one of the main concerns from Leanna Louis' supporters. And second question, they also mentioned some other previous residency controversies involving members of the current Board of Supervisor, who is actually the president of the board, Sherman Walton. Walton owns real property in Vallejo, which is north of San Francisco. It's not in San Francisco. And Walton reacted to the allegations on his Facebook account by saying that he cannot afford a home in the city and thus purchased property in Vallejo for use by his family, which I was told by one of the supporters, he treated that as his principal residence. So, that if that's true, then it certainly violates the requirement of the law. But according to the same local media, Mission Local, the city attorney confirmed, advising Walton that there was no issue with him owning a real property outside of San Francisco as long as he remains residency inside the city. So I contacted the city attorney but have not heard from them yet. So these the supporters of Leanna Louie are concerned that there are double stands when coming to this residence test. So so this is a developing story. What's the next step? According to the lawyers for Louie, they are filing to the court for their petition and submitting all the documents by September 6th and hoping to have a hearing as soon as next week, resolving this issue before the ballot is printed. And the city attorney, both the city attorney and the Department of Election, they have sent out a statement just affirming their position that Leanna Louie, does not qualify for candidacy. So we'll follow up on that to see how it could happen. But one thing, if you follow our shows, you may remember another Chinese American activist, Ann Shu, who is also very active in the recalling the school board in San Francisco, which became national news, right? Ann Shu. She was appointed after the recall. She was appointed by the mayor as the temporary, as the interim board, school board commissions. But then she got into trouble by, answering a questionnaire saying, a very simple sentence about the African American students and the Hispanic students and family, which the same kind of words were also said by former President Obama and some others. So Ann Shu was heavily attacked by the leftist organizations and calling her racist. And now we hear again Leanna Louie, who is also a local leader to recall the San Francisco District Attorney, Chesa Boudin. And she was qualified, but then now she was said not qualified for running for Board of Supervisor. So that raised a lot of concern, especially from the Chinese American community in San Francisco and actually beyond, in the San Francisco Bay Area, because for the Chinese Americans, a lot of them, they felt they were both Ann Shu and Leanna Louie are, because why this happening to them, and everybody probably is wondering, and some of their supporters, including Chinese Americans, feel that because they are independent and that they are leaning more towards, not exactly conservative, but just leaning towards a little bit more conservative, then they are not following the liberal ultra-left political force in San Francisco, and that's why they are attacked. They are targeted. So, what do you think? If you understand the politics in San Francisco, in California, maybe you can share with all of us. How do you think? Do you think this kind of concern is valid? Share your comments. All right. So, in the meanwhile, let's move on to the third piece of news today. Again, it's California. California just banned new gas cars by 2035, but now the state is suggesting residents not to charge their electrical cars. So what happened? The unelected California Air Resource Board on August 26th voted unanimously to ban the sale of new gas-powered cars by 2035, other than some plug-in hybrids. The state also set targets to require 35% of new cars sold in California to produce zero emissions by 2026 and require 68% by 2030. There will be fines of up to $20,000 for each vehicle that does not meet the production target by 2035. Fast forward to today, August 31st, the California Independent System Operator, abbreviated as ISO, issued a statewide flex alert calling for voluntary electricity conservation from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. today, which is deemed as a peak time. It is due to high temperatures in the forecast across the state. The grid operator is expecting high electricity demand, primarily from air conditioner use and some other large appliances. Additional flex alerts are also possible through the Labor Day weekend, as record-setting temperatures are forecast across much of the state and the West. So in today's flex alert, Californians are urged to conserve power by setting thermostats to 78 degrees or higher. If health permits, avoiding use of major appliances and turning off unnecessary lights. That's what's in the flex alert. It continues saying they should also avoid charging electric vehicles while the flex alert is in effect. So this grid operator, California ISO, said it is to prevent blackout amid a regional heat wave. In recent years, California ISO has issued flex alerts and made similar statements calling on residents to hold off on charging electric cars. For example, in mid-July last year, the grid operator posted a Twitter message that Californians should not charge their electric vehicles and other devices between 4 and 9 p.m. So, what's left for California drivers? Go figure. And, a lot of people say, okay, so that's California, right? However, we all know the saying, where California goes, the whole nation goes, right? So actually, there are 19 states would follow California's footstep to ban electric cars. And also beyond United States, Australia banks recently saying that they will not give loans to gas-generated gas cars, after a certain year and the dates. So, how do you think of such a kind of decision? And if you are, I know some of you are in California, so what do you think? And for other states, folks, how do you think of this type of policy and decision making? All right, so let's take a look of some of your comments. Okay, James, too much hanky-panky with elections. And Laura from BC, Canada. Hi, Laura, welcome. And Laura, you grew up in Paradise, California. I was saying Paradise, the town of Paradise, or just you're referring to, California used to be a paradise? Let me know, because in the town of Paradise, there was unfortunately a wildfire, one of the largest fire in California history. I believe it's in 2017, around 2017 or 18. I actually went there to do report after the unfortunate, tragedy. So, it was so beautiful. really you can call it paradise. But after the fire, it was just, yeah, really, really tragic. Yeah, Laura, you said our world is out of balance. Yeah. Oh, James, you said it's wow, it's triple digits in Los Angeles, 105 degree. Wow. So, and Larry, you said hopefully they will go get her back on the ballot. Yeah, we probably would, would know about a week later. So we'll keep you posted. And Larry, you said the rank choice is not good. Well, yeah, I hear you. And there are a lot of controversies about rank choice. Sometimes people just feel it's very confusing. And also sometimes, a lot of time I hear people complain about the results. They feel it doesn't really reflect the constituents. So, yeah. And Larry, you continue said, I cannot wait until California passes a law to only use pedal cars. Wow. And Matthew, you said between the hours of 4 and 9, California are sitting in their electric cars to stay cool. Wow. Okay, so James, your AC is still on. Wow, so you can imagine how hot it is. All right, so I don't know if Holly's there today, but I'm gonna bring you a joke, but it's not from me, actually. It's from our former president, Reagan. And you probably have heard it, but I think it's pretty fitting in the circumstance right now, and also including the passing of former Soviet Union State Secretary Gorbachev. So President Reagan he's just such a communicator, right? He tells jokes, he's so humorous, and in speeches, he actually said that he had a new hobby to start collecting jokes, the real jokes about Soviet Union. And one of the joke is talking about how the people, in Soviet Union, they are lining up trying to order new cars. All right. So one of them. Finally, it's his turn, and he said, okay, I want this car, and when can I get it? So the person, in the counters, at the counters telling him, oh, yeah, it's 10 years from now. And then the person said, okay, so 10 years from now today, so in the morning or in the afternoon. And then another person was saying that, it's 10 years later, what do you care? It's in the morning or afternoon. And you know what this person answered? And he said, oh, because my plumber is scheduled to come in the morning. Okay, so, that's in Soviet Union, how, the lack of supplies and things can make people do, right? And another joke is actually President Reagan said that he told this joke to Gorbachev, and Gorbachev actually laughed. And what happened was Gorbachev in Soviet Union. Actually that's how it goes. Is President Reagan said. To Gorbachev, in United States, everyone can just go to the Oval Office of White House and pounding on the table and telling the president that I don't agree with how you run the country. And Gorbachev said that we can do that in Soviet Union as well, and Reagan said, you can. And he said, yeah, and we have people coming to my office and pounding on the table and saying that I don't agree with President Reagan, how he run his country. All right, yeah, so that's in the 80s, right? And, we just, at that time, things happened in the Soviet Union. We just felt it's so, right, ridiculous. But some of it, we are, seeing some of such kind of trace now here, which is sad. And then that's why we need to be, really alert and to educate people about that. So, and that's why Wei and I do this show and trying to share our perspectives and share the lessons from authoritarian regime and how people live and how people feel living under such kind of a regime. So hopefully more and more our fellow Americans can realize, and more of us can, wake up and speak out, step up. Both like Liana and Anshu, they lived under communist regime. And especially I interviewed Liana, and she really knows, she also said that she's very concerned about what she's seeing happening in San Francisco, in this country, have the signs of the socialism, communism, which really restricting people's freedom, and that's why she stepped out. So, yeah, and all right, so Larry, you asked what would they think of the mess we are in today? Yeah, good question. And James, you said, imagine if Reagan or Kennedy were alive today. Yeah. And Daniel said, thank you, Cathy. You're welcome. Yeah, I'm so glad you're with us, with me today. We skipped a couple of days due to other things and some adjustments. But, it's really, we're really glad that you continue to follow our show and share our videos. Larry, you said a pretty good one. I'm glad you like it. All right. Great. So I think that's it for today. Hope you enjoy it. And so take care, keep safe, try to keep cool, James and other folks. And we'll see you next time. All right. Good night. Bye-bye.